Welcome to the first episode of the Bad Influence Podcast. I'm your host, Jordan Banderas. Before we get started, don't forget to smash the subscribe or follow button so you don't miss out on any episodes. So let's begin. Have you ever asked yourself, am I a bad influence? I sure have, because I have been called one throughout my entire life. Apparently, I have been a bad influence since I was a fucking little kid. Mostly because of something I have done or said to someone else. I was the loud kid others will follow in kindergarten, so the teachers were like, Jordan, you need to shut up. But I wouldn't. In elementary, I would never shut up and cuss way too much and ask way too many questions. The teachers didn't know what to do with me. I was the kid that was always saying, but why? So I was told to shut up again and again. Now, in junior high and high school, things got way worse because I will be the one that was planning to skip classes as soon as I walk in the door. I was like, I don't want to be here. I don't like that class. I don't like that teacher. I don't even pay attention. So because either my friends or I had a car, I would be like, who wants to go do something else? Something more fun. So because of that, the teachers didn't even have the opportunity to tell me to shut up. I took care of that problem, is the way that I see it. And I think it was a smart move in my opinion. Now, one of the main reasons people say I'm a bad influence is that if you come up to me with a problem or a question, I will push you to find a solution. And not just a solution, it will be a solution that will work for you. Not for me or anybody else, but for you. I will question you as to what do you want to do? Like, how do you see the situation, Until you can say, hey, you know what? This is what I need to do. Because I don't like to sugarcoat anything. And when I have done that, people say that I'm a bad influence because I tell them that they need to stand up for themselves. And I'm proud of being a bad influence towards others because I have seen people who have changed their lives for the better. I have seen friends leave toxic relationships and toxic jobs and go to therapy after giving them my perspective of what I see going on in their life. So, due to all of the feedback I received from people after giving them my advice based on my perspective, I decided to create this new podcast where I'm going to share situations I have encountered throughout my entire life. I know I'm only 35, but I have seen and done so much during my lifetime. So this will be a show that has a variety of topics. Now, while I was doing my other show, the Caregiver and Spoonie podcast, I will advise people often. They will send me emails, they will call me, they will literally reach out to me. And they will ask me, how do you come up with this kind of advice since I'm very unorthodox? To be able to answer that, I felt like I would have to introduce myself so people could see why my perspective is way different than others. So since this is the first episode of the Bad Influence podcast, let me introduce myself. If you don't already know me, as you can tell, my name is unique, very unique. It is B. Jordan, but it's pronounced Jordan. The B is silent, and I know it's hard to pronounce. So people want to know where it comes from, and I get a lot of questions about it, to be honest. But that's a story for another time. Anyway, I was born in Mexico City, Mexico. My parents were married until I was around 4 years old, and then they divorced due to my dad cheating on my mom and having multiple children with different women. I'm his second kid with my mom, but third overall. That's why I'm so damn charming. That's what my wife says. But unfortunately, He just kept trying to recreate my charming personality. He tried 4 more times and he failed. So, because of this, pretty much a single mom tried to raise me. And growing up was tough. And I mean tough. Since my mom was stressed out all the time due to money being tight, since my dad never really paid child support, that fucker. Now, when I live in Mexico City, I had to grow up fast since I was surrounded by violence, abuse, and death. For me, every day was a fight for survival. The streets down there are not the safest. Probably you didn't know that, but that's a big reason why people like to move out of Mexico and other countries as well, because it's not as safe. So, in my case, I had to be ready for anything. I saw muggings happening for a simple necklace or a purse. And this was happening all the time around the area that I was living. So I had to look over my shoulder every single time I was out and about. So I was pretty stressed out myself, because it's like, who wants to look out over their shoulder every time? Now, growing up, I pretty much raised myself alone since my mom had a lot of friends and she will go out with them, which is fine, or with her boyfriend all the time. And I mean all the time, like when I would come home from school, she was never there. And since I had no parental supervision, the only role models I look up to were drug lords and gangsters. You know, like gang members, stuff like that. So I thought that was the only lifestyle that I could make something out of, because they had money and things I wanted. You know, they had the girls, they had everything, especially the money, you know. So when I was a teen and going through a really hard time trying to figure out what I wanted to do in my life, I was eventually arrested at 17 because I was selling stolen items through a business my friends and I created. But we got caught shoplifting, so we had to end it. Shortly after that, I drove for a large drug dealer and carried massive amounts of contraband in my car. But you want to know what the crazy part is? The crazy part is that I was not scared when I did any of those things. Not a single time. I was like, this is the life that I was given, so I will live it. And I was making money, which was important to me back then. My family didn't even know how much money I had stashed in my room. We're talking around like 10 grand or more. Now, here's a random fact. I heard that everybody likes random facts, so I want to give you one. Something that no one believes me about is that when I tell them that I was an excellent student back home in Mexico, they get surprised, like they were not expecting that from me. They're like, no, you were not. Like, I can't believe that. But I really was. I was an A student. But that changed when I moved to the US at 13, because that's when I became a horrible student. Some of the reasons are that, for one, I didn't know anything about the culture. Obviously, the culture is different. Nobody prepared me for the culture shock that happened right away. And I didn't even speak the language, so it was hard to adapt. Plus, and this happens with a lot of immigrant families, my mom put a ton, and I mean a ton of pressure on me to help her, because I was her main form of communication with local people. But the fucked up part is that I barely spoke any English words at all. But for her, since she didn't understand anything or what I was trying to tell her, because she never listened to me, that was enough to be thrown to the wolves. She was like, that's enough for me, so translate. So I had to do it. Probably you can relate to that, because when your parents say you must do this, it means you better fucking do it or else. Especially with Latino moms. Probably you have heard other comedians. Well, it's true. Latino moms or Latino dads can be mean. Now, after being in the States for 14 years and feeling like I was going to be alone forever, because that's exactly how I felt, the craziest thing happened in my life. I met the woman who became my wife online, and she helped me clean my ass up. She was like, no, you're too broken. Let's put you together. Let me make you into a man of good. That way you can do something for yourself. So she helped me change my mindset, and we started that process 8 years ago when we got married, and we have been going strong ever since that day. But after I got married, my wife had to teach me how to speak English after being in the US for that long. And it has been a long journey since I'm always asking her, why does it have to be said this way and not that way, especially since English words translate backwards in Spanish. And she gets so frustrated. She's like, why don't you just trust me since this is my language? And I'm like, okay. So I just go along with it. So when I tell people my background, some people actually say that I should be ashamed of it. But I have found that I'm relatable to many. Also, people like how I tell it like it is when I give my perspective on a situation. And since I suffer from anxiety, depression, and was diagnosed with PTSD, I give out advice without sugarcoating the truth and without taking sides. It's not like, oh, you're wrong or this person is right or whatever. No, I'm like, this is how I see it. This is what I'm telling you. Then you make the best out of that advice I'm giving you. And people may not like it. You know, nobody likes to hear the truth, or nobody likes to hear that nobody's siding with them. But I'd rather hear the hard truth than a lie that won't help me with whatever situation I'm dealing with now or in the long run. I think that's the best way to go, because I'd rather save myself the heartache. At least that's what has worked for me. So as you can tell, coming from a background like I just shared with you, I have a unique perspective on life. And there's a lot more, of course. But I can't talk about all of it in a single episode, or it will turn into an audiobook. And it will be a long one. So on this podcast, I'm going to be sharing many personal stories and the advice I have given to other people. I'll be raw, unfiltered, and to the point. I'll also be talking about things that people ask me about, such as how I stay motivated, keeping a positive mindset, dealing with good times, hard times, dealing with health issues, relationships, life in general, standing up for yourself, and way more. So, thank you for following me on this new chapter in my life. Don't forget to share, like, and subscribe. We are on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. And you can send me a DM on social media or email me at bjordanthebadinfluence@gmail.com. And I leave you with this. Even if someone is trying to influence you, you still have the final say about what you're going to do with your life. Till next time.